ऑल राइट सो वेलकम एवरीवन मार्केट रैप के एक और एडिशन में मेरे साथ हैं पंकज सर। वंस अगेन थैंक यू सो मच सर टाइम निकालने के लिए हमारे लिए। मार्केट्स में क्या चल रहा है हम समझने की कोशिश करेंगे। तो विदाउट एनी फर्दर अडू सर, क्या रहा ये वीक, क्या चला मार्केट में?
तो थैंक यू विशु। आई थिंक दिस वीक हैज बीन रिकॉर्ड ऑफ सॉर्ट्स फॉर मार्केट्स। तो अगर आप देखेंगे यूएस मार्केट्स लाइफ टाइम हाई पे है, देन निकी इज आल्सो एट लाइफ टाइम हाई। एंड आई थिंक इंडियन मार्केट्स में एक ट्रेंड रिवर्सल जो एक पहले चल रहा था काफी प्रॉफिट टेकिंग, आई थिंक वो एक ट्रेंड चेंज हुआ। तो इंडियन मार्केट्स आल्सो सॉर्ट ऑफ विटनेस 1% काइंड ऑफ अ गेन। एंड जो मिड कैप एंड स्मॉल कैप में काफी hefty करेक्शन चल रहा था। आई थिंक दिस इज द फर्स्ट वीक व्हेन रिवर्सल हैज हैपेंड। सो both small cap and mid cap have ended more than 1% higher. And this is largely coming from the fact that Fed is giving comfort that you will see three rate cuts for this year. And I think, like we have been highlighting earlier, also March is a month where people or markets traditionally see weakness because people book profits to sort of pay taxes. You see tax harvesting also sort of happening. So I think it largely last year be ऐसे ही था, and I think this time also it is panning out largely on the same lines. So our sense is that market should hold 21,700 kind of a level as support, and we should be nudging towards a previous highs of 22,500. And structurally, we are still maintaining कि आपका 23,400 is what should happen before the elections, and 25,000 by the year end. And I think sectorally, overall, our sense is that BFSI, PSUs, infra, these are the sectors which should be in focus. And I think mid cap, small cap should see further recovery because they were oversold. We have seen pretty good correction in some of them. Not to say that everything in mid cap and small cap is buy. So one needs to be very selective because it's a fairly large universe of 3,000 plus, 500 plus kind of stocks.
राइट सर, आई थिंक सर यू ऑलरेडी मेंशनड इट। इस वीक काफी कुछ फेड के जैसी अनाउंसमेंट आया, उसके बाद एक शार्प रिवर्सल वी सॉ, एंड आई थिंक देयर वर सम अदर सेंट्रल बैंक्स आल्सो दैट अनाउंस मेजर अनाउंसमेंट। जापान में, स्विस में काफी कुछ रिवॉल्व कर रहा था सेंट्रल बैंक्स के अराउंड।
Absolutely. So I think if you look at this week has been dedicated to all central banks with the different policy actions. So starting with Fed, Fed gave comfort that three rate cuts is very much a possibility, subject to data not really sort of going any haywire. So which is where markets have drawn comfort, and US markets have achieved a new high, and dollar appreciated, and which is why a lot of commodities have also sort of corrected. Now, surprisingly, if you look at Bank of England has held rates. They're saying that their rates are at peak levels, so they haven't done much from the policy side. And then you have Bank of Japan, which has actually hiked rates. So from that perspective, they have ended their 8-year hiatus of negative interest rates. So that is a sort of a change. And on top of it, a complete reversal of this is Swiss Central Bank. So they are the first European bank to sort of cut rates. So you have seen all kinds of policy actions from most of the central banks. But what US does is the single most important. So it has obviously a lot more bearing on what happens to markets globally. And since US has given that comfort, so we are taking, or the entire markets have taken this as a very positive, and which is why most of the markets have witnessed a very good positive reaction this week.
Right, absolutely, sir. Sir, as we speak, I think just recently Accenture में एक बहुत बड़ी कुछ अपीवल हुआ, जैसे कि मार्केट्स हिल गए, मतलब यूएस में, इंडिया में, सब जगह। सो कैन यू गिव अस अ ब्रीफ ओवरव्यू कि क्या हो रहा है एक्सेंचर में एग्जैक्टली?
So Accenture is a fairly large company, and 50% of their revenues come from consulting, and 50% comes from outsourcing activities. So India mein jo your big companies, their consulting revenues is very less, but the outsourcing revenue is comparable to what all your big IT companies like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, or all of them do. So Accenture came out with numbers, and numbers were not so inspiring. So one is for the outlook. So they had earlier guided for 2 to 5% kind of a growth, which they have cut it down to 1 to 3%. And this is, mind you, this growth is incorporating the inorganic growth of 2%. So which means that this year they're not looking at any growth. And if you look at sector-wise, I think BFSI did not grow for them. The US was quite weak. So number-wise, there was nothing to sort of say that things were looking brighter for IT, except for only one fact that they've signed a deal of nearly $600 million in the AI side. So AI is the new buzzword in IT, and hopefully that is the only thing which can prop up the IT as a overall growth rate. Now, when you sort of come to impact, I think we have seen most of the IT stocks correcting today, largely because the outlook is not good. Because what you're getting sense is that recovery for IT will not happen in this year, FY25, or it will happen in FY26 or late FY25. So which means that there's still some time. So a bit of a disappointment, and which is why IT stocks had corrected. But बहुत बड़ा move नहीं आया था IT में, तो which is why we did not see a crack, and some of the IT names actually sort of recovered. So IT is a sort of a struggle for the market as of now, and our sense is कि जब तक आपका US में you don't see a rate cut happening, because when the rate cut happens, the BFSI sector there is expected to do well, and BFSI is the biggest spender. So you look at any Indian IT company, the biggest revenue which will come for them is from the BFSI as a vertical. तो जब तक वो रिवाइव नहीं होता है तब तक कुछ होगा नहीं. तो I think IT I think subdued ही रहने वाला है, which is what Accenture highlighted.
Right, of course. Sir, another sector which was, I think, often in news this past week was the electronic vehicles. There was a government policy, and then there was a JSW and MG Motors, I think, tie-up coming. So far, we have been, I mean, everybody has been hearing the Tata story कि उनके पास steel है, power है, कार है, motors हैं, हर चीज है, तो तुम्हारे पास क्या? तो अब is this a defining moment for the industry where JSW and MG Motors are coming together to make another nexus, and plus the EV policy, how does?
So I'll come to the EV policy first. One is, see, big fear for the industry was that if government allows lower import duty electric vehicles, then a lot of foreign players will flood the Indian markets, and the investment will not happen. So which is why the government said they will bring it down, the import duty to 15% only until the vehicle prices are about $35, which means that it will not impact the existing ecosystem of electric vehicles in India, largely because most of your players, be it Tata Motors, be it MG, or number of other names, they sell vehicles at a lower price point. The good part is that you also need to develop the ecosystem. Typically, the best of the technologies get introduced in the higher end models, which is where the luxury segment is. And when it gets popular, that is when it becomes a mass, then it is applied to all the models. I mean, take the example of alloy wheels. Alloy wheels used to be in premium cars earlier, but now it's a sort of a product which is there in across models. So massification has happened for that. Look at the sunroof. Sunroof has also become. Now in EV also a lot of technologies are there, and unless you don't allow that ecosystem to sort of come and grow in India, things will not really move, or the overall ecosystem will not improve. So this policy should be seen from that perspective, that it is not disturbing the existing players, plus it is focusing more on localization, and you will get the benefit of introduction of new technologies. So which is why it's a very good move by the government, and is जो भी sector या existing incumbent player को जो भी risk था, I think वो सरकार ने address किया है. Now when you look at the JSW tie-up, so it's a fairly large market. So we are already the third largest auto market globally, and I think as things progress, overall expectation is that this market will become bigger. And good part is that we are very cost competitive from a overall global perspective. So EV is definitely a trend. If we are able to develop that ecosystem and produce EVs at a scale and possibly export to the world, then I think it becomes a lot more interesting story, and which is where I think JSW also sort of comes into picture. So while they are initially looking to put say 5,000 odd crores for expanding their capacity, say from 1 lakh to 3 lakh, बट आगे जाके जो उनका 1 मिलियन का प्लान है, ऑब्वियसली दे आर लुकिंग एट फर्दर मोर टाई अप्स फॉर कंपोनेंट्स फॉर ईवीज, सो पूरा इकोसिस्टम डेवलप करने। तो आई थिंक कहीं ना कहीं इंडस्ट्री बड़ा होने वाला है। दिस इज व्हाट आई इनिशियल साइन इज, बिकॉज न्यू प्लेयर्स आर कमिंग एंड सरकार इज आल्सो लुकिंग टू सॉर्ट ऑफ डेवलप द इकोसिस्टम। And plus, export bias is obviously going to be there along with the overall luxury market still being smaller in India. So India में luxury market is 1% of the overall size. Globally, it's in double digits. तो इंडिया में काफी स्कोप है। तो आई थिंक ये एक काफी अच्छा मूव है, एंड लाइक दे से इट कुड बी अ मारुति मूवमेंट फॉर ईवीज, वेरी मच पॉसिबल।
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, sir. Next, my question has to be around life insurance. उसमें भी I think sir काफी इस week मतलब हुआ है क्या, मतलब I don't have the full picture कि उसमें क्या हुआ है, but कुछ pressure ease हुआ है, कुछ आने में वाले टाइम में कुछ पॉजिटिविटी की न्यूज़ है. So what has happened, sir?
तो अगर आप देखिए लास्ट 1 ईयर से इंश्योरेंस इंडस्ट्री में कुछ ना कुछ रेगुलेशन आ रहे हैं विच हैज बीन इम्पैक्टिंग। सो लास्ट ईयर 5 लाख के ऊपर का पॉलिसी का पेमेंट है, तो ऑब्वियसली वो एक टैक्स ब्रैकेट में सरकार ने ला दिया था। उसके चक्कर में लास्ट ईयर Q4 में अच्छी खासी सेल्स हुई थी, तो एक बेस इफेक्ट था। एंड उसके बाद में अगर आप देखें उसका इम्पैक्ट पूरे साल भर सेक्टर में देखने को मिला। तो इस साल अगर आप देखेंगे तो ओवरऑल प्रीमियम ग्रोथ वेरी फ्लैटिश। Now, on top of it, further regulation was expected कि सरकार or the government might look at ask or might ask companies to offer higher surrender values.
Hmm.
So industry had this fear that if higher surrender values are offered, then probably customer may not really persist with the policies for a longer period of time, and that might affect their business. Now there is a sense what you are getting is possibly this kind of a stringent measure may not come through. So एक relief आ सकता है, but अभी तक actually formal announcement नहीं हुआ है. But since industry hasn't grown and already is in trouble because of or hasn't really seen the good growth, given the fact कि last year जो regulations आए थे उसका impact दिख रहा, तो कहीं ना कहीं एक रिलीफ रैली या एक रिलीफ सेक्टर को मिल सकता है. दैट इज व्हाट द एंटिसिपेशन इज, but yet to see a formal notification for this.
राइट, एब्सोल्युटली सर. हम लोगों का एनटीपीसी पे कुछ टाइम पहले हम लोगों का एक व्यू था. अभी रिसेंटली इस वीक आई थिंक सीईआरसी ने टैरिफ नॉर्म्स पहले एक ड्राफ्ट पेपर दिया था एंड देन दे हैव फाइनलाइज. सो हाउ डज दैट चेंज आवर व्यू, और आर वी इन लाइन, एंड ओवरऑल इंडस्ट्री पे उसका क्या इफेक्ट आने वाला है सर?
So I think no news is good news in some cases. So I think same is with the CRC tariff. I think policy continuity is very important, and very important for a sector which is so big or which is going to become a lot more bigger. So from that perspective, CRC has finalized the tariff and they've done minor tweaking, and which is not negative. So one is for new hydro, they have kept the ROEs at 17% plus for off-peak thermal power plants. The incentives have been revised by 5 paisa. Otherwise, no major changes. So like I said, no major changes or no major appeal in the overall policy, I think is good for the sector. Otherwise, people need to recalibrate, and which is what we have seen in ample cases. Because see, one point of time, the government allowed the imports to sort of come free. Then later they sort of disallowed. They insisted on having a lot more local content, which is why the entire renewable energy as a space has seen a lot of volatility. So I think this kind of a policy move, which is very stable, is very good for a sector because you don't need policy volatility. I mean, if you're spending so much, the consistency of the policy is paramount. I think that is a key positive or key takeaway from this.
Right. Awesome.
And I would want to sort of highlight is that NTPC as the stock which we have been preferring. So here our target price is 400. I think this is one company which has got the balance sheet to sort of take or increase the capacity to 60,000 megawatt on the renewable side. I think none of the other companies have that kind of a balance sheet. So somewhere down the line, this company is good from that perspective and is our top pick in that space.
Right. Speaking of top picks, इस वीक का हिडन जेम सर क्या होगा?
So what we are recommending is HEG. Now, HEG is a company which makes graphite electrodes. Now, graphite electrodes are used for melting scrap, steel scrap, because you manufacture steel through two modes. One is the blast furnace route, wherein you use iron ore, then you use coal to sort of extract steel. Or the other method is that since you are generating a lot of scraps, you melt that scrap and reproduce steel. So overall, the global demand for graphite electrodes is about 8 lakh. And I think what is expected is the EAF route consumes or is 70% less polluting. So our sense is that if you sort of exclude China, the overall globally, you will see the EAF route being preferred over the blast furnace route going forward. And next 5-6 years, our sense is that we will be adding nearly about 170 million tons kinds of capacity, steel capacity. For that steel capacity, you need additional 2 lakh tons of graphite electrode. And globally, there are 5-6 players who sort of supply. So one of them is obviously HEG, which has got a capacity of 1 lakh. So our sense is that since no major capacity is coming in, the bigger global players are not making the kind of margins what the Indian companies are making. So Indian companies have an inherent advantage. So which is why structurally we feel that this company should do well going forward because there's some capacity coming this year and next year. And for that, you need graphite electrodes, and these companies are the only sort of suppliers. So which is why I feel that the stocks look very attractive with a target price of 2,420. On top of it, they are also sort of going to make anode for lithium-ion batteries. So they would be catering to a sizable chunk of the graphite electrode anodes what will be required in the battery. So that way, I think this company is poised well, should do well, and this is why we are sort of recommending this stock with a target price of 2,420.
Awesome. This was amazing, sir. Thank you so much for explaining what all happened throughout the week. We'll be back next week, same time, to learn more from you, understand more from you. Thank you for your time, sir.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risk. Read all the related documents carefully before investing. Investment in securities market are subject to market risk. Read all the related documents carefully.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to never miss an update from ICICI Direct.